attendees are in listen-only mode.
Hello, everyone. This is Ryan Coleman. We see a few others are just joining the room. We do have a full house today, which is pretty exciting. So I'm going to give about 15 to 20 seconds for everybody to get situated, and we'll begin here shortly. Okay, great. So my name is Ryan Coleman, and I'd like to welcome all of you to the iFormBuilder Better Together training on integrating iFormBuilder and an introduction to the iFormBuilder API. Today, Barrett Johannesson is going to be our solutions engineer walking us through this presentation, and I will be facilitating. To get started, just some housekeeping issues. This is we put this on as a benefit to you, our customers, and everyone else that's in here. If there's any questions that come up at any time, please use the GoToMeeting questions tab on the right-hand side. I will be facilitating them, fielding them. It's either going to be answered in session, or if it's something that's very specific to your workflow, I'd be more than happy to schedule a time to follow up and talk through whatever your question is for that unique scenario. Also, at the end, we're going to be having an open Q&A. The open Q&A is tailored for more of an open integration or questions about open integration and what we're going to be getting involved with today. With that, I'd like to turn this over to Barrett. Barrett, the floor is yours.
All right, thanks, Ryan. Thank you, everyone, for joining us today. Like Ryan mentioned, we're going to talk about that integrating iFormBuilder data with some other third-party integration tools, as well as just on the cusp of really that API and that customization. Now, as Ryan also mentioned, I am a solutions engineer. I'm not a developer, but I am very excited about all the integrations that I'll be going through with you today and what that entails for your future and your data collection. So the topics that we're going to cover today is that first one, why integration is important. Of course, you're not going to start integrating until you really understand the importance of it. The second is how to get started with building that integration. The third is understanding iFormBuilder data. The fourth, of course, is Zapier Integration. I can't wait to share that with you. It is something that's newer within iFormBuilder, and it's amazing the capabilities that it has. The fifth is the using iFormBuilder feeds or post for integration. The sixth being examples of third-party integration tools. And the seventh being a custom web services through the API. Now that seventh one, I'm very happy to announce that we do have Tony Ruth on the call for us as well. And he'll be going through that seventh piece. He's much more of an expert than I am. So I'm excited, and thank you, Tony, for joining us too. So that first step, why integration is important. Here we have the SAMR model, and I'm actually going to pass it back to Ryan to make sure that he gives you all the information that you need on how this is applicable to you and through integration.
So when we talk with a lot of customers, oftentimes when they come into iFormBuilder, they're really looking to substitute, a paper form with iFormBuilder, and they're trying to replace that piece of paper. There's a brilliant man named Ruben Puentendora who created the SAMR model, and it was originally applied towards education. However, every one of our customers that are wildly successful and really march their way up the ladder implement the SAMR model. And what it stands for is substitution, augmentation, modification, and redefinition. First, users want to substitute that paper. So they're taking the exact fields and workflow and translated it into the iFormBuilder, into the actual form builder. As you use the iFormBuilder platform, which a lot of you that are on the call today are very familiar with, you're now able to augment the way that you use to collect data. You're able to have option lists that you're able to have drop-down menus. You're able to have advanced form building features like skip logic built into the platform. So if you're male, answer these 3 questions. If you're female, answer these 5 questions. You're also able to perform those calculations. You're able to capture images and photos. All of that is augmenting the way that you used to capture the data. Now, once you get to the above the dotted line into the transformational phase, that's really where you're going to start modifying your workflow. Now, when we say modifying your workflow, that might be a matter of dispatching records out into the field. So you're uploading information into iFormBuilder, you're assigning partially completed records out into the field. Again, it's built into the system, and you're able to now, trigger an email when a record gets submitted using our email alert system. Again, that's allowing you to transform or modify the way that you used to share information or pass information. What today's webinar is really about is at that top tier, the redefinition of your workflow. And or I guess what really starts that is the access to the iFormBuilder API. It's the bidirectional data flow that you're able to pull information into iFormBuilder, pass information or data collected in iFormBuilder into different types of dashboards, backend systems, reporting engines. It really runs the gamut. And it's what we really see as the exponential growth of a lot of our larger customers, or even those, those very agile, smart enterprises that really value the automation that is able to happen within iFormBuilder, and they march up this ladder. And we have some customers that are sending millions of transactions through our system on any given month, and it's completely redefining. And also the ROI is exponential in terms of what they're able to see in terms of actually implementing this very robust platform known as iFormBuilder. So as you go through your integration processes and planning, think about the SAMR model, because it's really the trajectory of where you want to go. And the redefinition is really all about automation. All about automation starts with the API. So with that, Barrett, please continue.
All right, thanks, Ryan. That's great. You can say that much better and eloquently than I ever could, so thank you. The next part that I want to focus on is why integration is important, and the 4 main reasons. That first one is that it eliminates that human error. So if right now you're copying and pasting and you're taking an hour each time to look at that report and maybe adding a macro to the Excel, you may be the person who's actually doing that is more apt to have that human error. Whereas if you automate that workflow, which is that second point, you cut down on that and it becomes a lot more fluid. The third point here is that it saves time and money. Like Ryan had mentioned, we have multiple customers who have integrated their data and are using that push and pull system. And with that, they are saving thousands of dollars just because they don't have to pay someone to go through and do that process, as well as they're able to visualize that data in a timely fashion. So that fourth step, which is that better visualization of data collected, it really helps you, and having that in real time it's amazing what it can do for you. With that, it's also the idea that you may, from there, you may actually find more information through the metadata and what the information that you collected than what you could ever believe possible. So getting started with adding integration is to first understand the iFormBuilder data. The second is to define that workflow. What I mean by that is, are you pushing or pulling information in and out, and what is it that you want that end result to be? The third step here is to use Zapier or your post data or the feeds, and the reason for that is to help you understand what integrations you want and what integrations are possible without building out that custom web services. And that fourth one is that custom web services and the API. All right, like I said, that first step is to understand the iFormBuilder data. So metadata is captured for every record by the iForm application, and this is done in the background. So if you're not familiar with looking at a data feed, then you may not have ever viewed this metadata. What it does is it captures the username, the timestamp, the latitude, longitude, altitude, speed, and compass direction, all in the background, like I noted. Then the second thing to keep in mind with this is the metadata includes the data column names and the option list key values. It doesn't include the labels. So when you start integrating, even with Zapier, when you start that integration, you'll be looking for those data column names and option list key values, as well as the metadata rather than those labels. The next thing to keep in mind here with this is that location data, it may not be available if the users deny location services to iFormBuilder. So even though we are trying to capture that information, if they don't have their devices set up to allow that to occur, then you will not be able to receive that information. here's just laying out exactly what that metadata is. And I'll bring up an example in just a moment, but this really goes through and defines it. This is especially important when you start using that API and you're making calls. You'll be using the same type of, you'll be using this. So this defines each and every piece. Through our Customer Success Center, we do have an article in the metadata, and that will define this as well. As I mentioned before, it does the location settings gives you that latitude, longitude, altitude, as well as that compass. And here it breaks down exactly what you're reading within that data. And like I mentioned, I'm going to bring up an example of what that looks like. This is just a basic form that I have 2 records for. Here we have all the metadata all the way up to M, so where it stops with the server modified date, and then after that it includes all of the data column names. From there we have our modified device ID as well as modified location and modified by the user and so on. So this is all those pieces that I just referred to before, and I showed you those descriptions. Here are those pieces within a feed. This is just an Excel feed. I'll go through the different options of feeds that we have available for you, but this, for this example, this is Excel. All right, before we go any further, I want to just make sure, I take a breath and we're able to answer any questions that you have. The first 4 things that we really talked about were the SAMR model, why integration is important, the steps in getting started, as well as the iFormBuilder data metadata.
Barrett, it looks like we can just continue on.
All right, that's great. So this next section, Ryan, I'm actually going to hand it back to you, the integration, the iFormBuilder.com versus that dedicated database.
Right. So we have a mixed group on the call today, and what we have are some customers that are still on iFormBuilder.com, and then others that are part of our dedicated database community. And within iFormBuilder.com, you do have access to your post.json and post.xml, as well as the data feeds of XML, JSON, RSS, and Atom, your Atom feeds, as well as your XLS. Data feeds. But what I really want to focus on is within iFormBuilder, you're able to push data from iFormBuilder into other tools. You can use Zapier. You can also go into other types of systems, Google Docs, et cetera, different types of reporting engines. However, those customers that are at the dedicated database, with that dedicated database does come access with the API, and that API allows for the bidirectional data to go back and forth. So as we jump in here, when we start referencing, certain integrations with Zapier or other types of tools, or even the custom built web services, the access to the API is only available at the dedicated database. So just wanted to clarify that as best as possible. Go ahead, Barry.
All right. Well, yeah, thanks, Ryan. So we talked about earlier, we did talk about what that data is. We talked about how that second step is defining that workflow. Right now, we're just going to pretend that, you've already defined your workflow and you've chosen to use Zapier for that first step of integration. The reason you would want to choose Zapier is because, in all honesty, you don't have to write any code. It's very simple, and you're able to automate tasks within 2 different web services in a bidirectional way as well. And this, to use the iFormBuilder app, you do have to have the dedicated database. If you do not have one, you can still use the data from iFormBuilder. You'll just have to create that through a webhook. But here, as you can see, Zapier has over 250 web apps. And through that, you're able to work with either your project management tools that you already may have in place, or a CRM tool, maybe like Salesforce. You want to have information from client information from Salesforce come into iFormBuilder, and then a note added back to Salesforce about how that lead capture went. Or the possibilities are endless with this, and it's understanding that going through those 250 apps, going through and searching and finding what would work for you and what services that you're already using. So in essence, the first thing within Zapier is you want to build a Zap. And you do this through triggers and actions. And that will connect the iFormBuilder data with the other application that you choose to connect with. And it'll automate those time-consuming tasks. What you'll want to keep in mind is that some web apps like Salesforce are considered premium, and they do require a paid Zapier account. If you haven't signed up for a Zapier trial and you're brand new and you're really excited about it, and you do have a Salesforce account and you're not sure if you wanted to purchase Zapier or not, they do allow you to use those premium services in the very beginning. The next thing that I want you to keep in mind with that Zapier integration, like I mentioned before, you have to have that dedicated database account with the server admin login to use the iFormBuilder app within Zapier. Like it says here, you also need that server admin login. I can't emphasize that enough, because if you don't have that, then you won't be able to integrate your data. The second to the bottom is that iFormBuilder.com account, that you are still able to use that data within Zapier, but you will use a webhook app as one of the either the trigger or the action. And the last thing here is that both accounts should be set up prior to building the Zap. And what I mean by that is whatever your trigger app is, as well as your action app, both of those should be formatted and ready to exchange information. To start, I just wanted to go through with you what triggers and actions you do have available within the iFormBuilder app in Zapier. The triggers, you can add, say that when a new user is added, have this action occur, or the new form, new company profile, a new record, or a new widget. Those are all on that trigger side. So that's that first piece. And then that second piece, that action that you want to occur after that trigger, you can create a user, update a form assignment, update a record assignment, create a widget, create a form, and create a record. So now I'm going to jump over to Zapier and actually show you how that process works. All right, so here we have my Zapier account. I've just logged in. On the side, I have my tasks and my Zaps. I'm currently on a free account. So with that, they do give me 5 different Zaps, which as well as 460 tasks. And what a task is every time that a behavior occurs, then maybe every time a record is submitted and brought over to Salesforce, that would be a task. I do have 3 different Zaps that I've built that are currently active. So that first one, I have iFormBuilder data going over into WebMerge. The second is I have iFormBuilder triggering a notification if there's broken equipment through InstaPush, and that's one of the web service apps that Zapier has available, as well as this last one, which is iFormBuilder data. Every time a new record is built or a new record is completed, a new row will be added to my Google spreadsheet. So let's get started and build a Zap. So like I mentioned, we do have the side where you trigger an app, and then you have that action app. We're going to trigger using the iFormBuilder. And for this example, let's have a new record. So when a new record is completed, then I want this next action to occur. All right. So we'll just do that Google Docs like I had mentioned before. We'll create a spreadsheet row. From here, we've set up our trigger and our action, so I'm going to continue. Now, I've already set up my iFormBuilder account, but let's say that I didn't. This is how you would build this out. And just to be clear, so the API has already been completed in the background for this. Thankfully, iFormBuilder and our developers have done that working with Zapier. And from now, that's why we're able to perform all these integrations without having to write any code ourselves. All right, so the first step here, I am going to change this and to, let's say, my iFormBuilder account. And then I am going to connect this to my dedicated database, which is training.iFormBuilder.com. Click continue. From here, I will have to log in using, again, that server admin, otherwise it will not work. And now it's testing for problems. Fingers crossed that it's working, and it says, yep, account is working. So now that I've connected my iFormBuilder account, I need to connect my Google account. I've already set this one up, so I'm just going to select it and test this account. And thankfully that account is working as well. So I'll continue. This fourth step is, the filter the iForm triggers. So I have to, because I have that dedicated database, I first have to choose which company profile to use. Here I'm going to use the end user training. Now that I've defined which profile to use, I need to define which form it should be triggering from this. And, oops, I must have gone by it. Here we go. So we have Android Hospital Inventory Parent and email error 2. And this is required because, like we know, if anything were to happen, I want to make sure that I'm contacted if this doesn't work or if there's any problem with it at all. From here, I also have the option to add filters based on iFormBuilder fields to only allow some items. I'm going to skip over that right now, but it may very well be applicable to your workflow. So steps 1 through 4 are really connecting my accounts and connecting the iFormBuilder. Now I need to connect the Google spreadsheet. And this I would have already customized, and I already have for this usage. And that's where I did mention in the earlier steps to make sure that those two pieces have already been set up. The accounts have been set up previously. All right, and here I'm just selecting sheet 1, and it's loading the fields. And going forth, I can insert all my iFormBuilder fields that I have. So first name, we'll just do and these additional ones I'm just going to skip over for the purposes of this example. As you can see, these are all the fields that I've placed within that Google spreadsheet. And then from there, I'm able to add my iFormBuilder fields. I'm going to continue, and I'll test that Zap. And once I test that, it'll let me know if I've been successful in building it out. So there's that trigger. That's what's going to happen when the information is triggered. And here's the action. All right, and I'll just continue. And that's the basics of building that Zap. And here we'll just do demo Google spreadsheet. Now, if I were to go, oops, I can't spell. We'll just keep it that. If I were to go over to my Google account, I would be able to see all the updated pieces of records, or all the updated records that have been completed from this point. All right, so before I go any further, are there any questions about how that Zapier works and how to connect the iFormBuilder account to Zapier?
The one question that did come up was, is Zapier a third-party service? And absolutely, yes, it is. It does require a separate account. However, it's extremely affordable. And we also like to say that Zapier is great for creating that integration. However, it's also great for rapid prototyping. A means for you to be able to quickly and efficiently demonstrate the workflow that you want, and then once you have that in motion, you can then have a development team actually build out what the exact functionality that you want or you need between two systems. And Barrett, a lot of the a lot of the other questions are coming back by, why not use if this, then that? And absolutely, the same process is in place. We find that the if this, then that website is very focused on the consumer grade type integrations. However, we do have a few customers that are using it for various types of feeds and whatnot. So absolutely, anything is possible within or once you're leveraging anybody that can accept, a post JSON or a post XML feed. All of those are very easily, I guess you can very easily integrate with. So, but with that, Barrett, all the other questions seem to be along the lines of simple how-tos. So I think we're good to go, and I'm answering them in the chat as we speak.
Sure, thank you. All right, so the next part that we're going to focus on is integration using iFormBuilder data feeds as well as the iFormBuilder post. So this first part is the data feeds. Not only do I want to just go through what it is, but also that the difference between that data views and the feeds. So here you have the list view, map, graph, HTML, Excel, and Excel flat. Those are all the views, and that's used for that basic reporting, and if you just want to go through and view that, then that's the perfect tool for you. Whereas the feeds, it uses that metadata that we talked about previously, and it can be used to integrate with other systems. When you choose to integrate the feeds, it is a more manual process. It's no longer, or it's not automated at the time, but it can be done, and you can integrate using these feeds. The next, which I'm really excited about and I love using, is using the post data. So the post data, this is found under the assign section. So when you go to assign a form and you're selecting all those different users, you can also assign your post data. You have the option to either assign it through an XML post or a JSON post. Then from there, you would include the URL. So in my next example, I'll show you with the webhook in Zapier that you'll place the URL that Zapier gives you, and you'll place that here within that iFormBuilder form. And underneath that is the email error to the following address, like we mentioned before. That's very important, and it will cut down on any troubleshooting later on if you have that set in place. All right, very simply, this is just a screenshot. I'm going to go over to Zapier to really show you what it looks like as well. But here, through that process, they'll show you, they'll say, we've generated custom webhook URL for you to send the request. You just copy that and you paste it in that URL within that the sign form section. Okay, so here I've set it up where I have that webhook in the very beginning, and then I have my information, or I wanted to catch a hook, then I wanted to create a note within Salesforce. So I've selected, now that I've triggered that, I select and I copy this information, and I choose, I go under my form assignment, and from here I can choose the specific form that I want to assign that post to. And I click assign. And then I paste that URL right there at the bottom. And I put in my email address to make sure that I receive notification if there is an error. And then I'll just update. Very simply, that's how you use the post. And the post you can use with a lot of other web services. They'll, like you saw within Zapier, all I had to do is copy that over and then place it within the form structure. The same thing goes with some of those other web services. I know that was short and sweet as far as what the post versus that feed really is, and I just want to make sure that we do have a lot of other information coming your way, but before we go on, are there any questions about that feed and that post?
So Barrett, we have a couple questions, and actually, Tony, if you're available right now, we have a couple questions asking about how this whole interaction works with SQL Server. And there's actually probably 6 or 7 questions coming through. One, I know Zapier does have a Zap for SQL Server. How does that work, or how are certain customers currently, leveraging either the API or the, post to interact with SQL Server?
Sure. So thanks, Ryan. Hi, everyone. This is Tony. So essentially, folks are either having the data from iFormBuilder sent to a web service, and consider Zapier a web service for this conversation. And that web service is responsible for consuming the data, making sense of it, if you will, and then writing it to the SQL Server table that whoever set it up wants it to go to. So basically, you have some options too during this transformation phase. What we see a lot of folks doing is building a form which has like a parent-child relationship, and during the transformation phase, they're actually flattening this data out into a single table. Lots of folks are wanting to bring data into SQL Server primarily for reporting purposes. You have a reporting engine that runs on top of a machine like that already, so you want to keep using that. And it's a good opportunity to really kind of rearrange the data in a way that makes sense for the reporting side, because often what you design for the front-end users is not the best design for back-end manipulation or building reports from. So there's a couple of benefits of bringing the data into SQL Server and trying to do some reporting there, and it's really kind of the same process. Either build a web service to consume the data that's coming from iFormBuilder, either with your in-house development team by contacting our professional services team, or using a tool like Zapier in order to make that data pass from iFormBuilder into the secondary system.
No, that's excellent, Tony. Appreciate it.
Yeah, no,
that's that's great. And we're going to be hearing more from Tony here in a little bit. And some of the other questions here are asking if you're able to customize the XML post fields, or does this need to be handled by the web service that you're posting to? And that's another technical question that I'd like for you to jump on there, Tony.
Absolutely. So iFormBuilder allows the form builder to define the column names. So basically the XML or the JSON structure that you would have to work with. So if you're building the forms, then it's much easier to also work with the the web service that's going to consume that data. Hopefully that answers your question.
Yeah, absolutely. And for these types of questions, I'd be more than happy to have more in-depth conversations. I'm actually going to post my personal email on the in the chat for different types of how-tos or whys, especially on the integration side. Be more than happy to talk through that workflow and how to best go about that. Barrett, with that, I think we can continue. Good stuff.
All right, thanks, Ryan, and thanks, Tony. The next thing I really want us to focus on is some of those other third-party integration tools that you have available to you. Now, there are thousands and thousands out there, so we're just going to mention a few of them. The first one being WebMerge, and what WebMerge does is it's able to customize an email or PDF report from your iFormBuilder data, and that's done through on the WebMerge side. You can either use a fillable PDF if you've already had that for your form, or you can build your own form within WebMerge. And what that looks like on the WebMerge side is here. This is the process that I went through. I titled it Barrett's Demo Building My Own, and this is where I was taking iFormBuilder and I was just putting in those fields here. This is before I actually connected the two accounts. And this is the build your own. Like I said, you don't have to build your own. You can use a fillable PDF and other report options. From here, I was able to, I added some settings. I said, okay, I want the output, I want it to be an email, and I want it to follow this time zone. And if you can make it, of course, inactive or active. They also give you advanced features. You also have your field map. This is where I was able to connect the iFormBuilder data and the custom field name. And I could bring over information from the parent form as well as the sub form. Once you've gone through this process, you'll go through and you'll test that, and and then you'll deliver, and then the merge. So from there, there's that merge URL that you can go through and integrate and automate that, as well as the upload data or manual data entry. What I love about WebMerge 2 is that now I know I've spoken a lot about Zapier, but WebMerge has an app within Zapier that you can automate this process as well. You'll just have to set up both accounts, set up that form within WebMerge, and then set it up, or assuming that you've already created, of course you would have already created it within iFormBuilder. So you'll have to set it up on both sides and then connect them through Zapier. Just to show you a quick difference of, your iFormBuilder report, this is that building inspection. These are the same forms. Don't judge the pictures. They're just sample images. But the idea that you can have that image right up in the beginning and show that very quickly and show those important notes that the report that's needed right in the beginning of the report, you can show that at the very top. Where this signature, yes, it's located here, but it could potentially be later on in the form. You can place it anywhere you want within the WebMerge document. You can then separate, here we have the exterior inspection and then interior inspection, and just those, what passed and what failed. That's the same information on that iFormBuilder report, but it's not as visually appealing or as comprehensive. So that's one tool that you have access to, and then the next one is Clipfolio. Clipfolio is a dashboard, and what you're able to do is build clips that allow you to see. You can bring in your information through their feeds or through a CSV file. This is more of a manual process right now, but you are able to do this and again build that out so you can visually see the results of your forms. Next, Zoho Reports is that same idea. It is a reporting tool, and it does give you that visual factor. You can create this by, the reporting database by importing data from iFormBuilder. Before I go too far, I'm just going to show you just a quick example. Here's, our iFormBuilder account and some of the data that was collected, and how you can have different tabs that show different pieces of information and visually stimulating, as well as you can share this information with other people. Then Zoho Reports, same idea as it being a reporting tool. These are the different ways that you can import that information into the database. I did go through this, and it's a very basic sample. But I took some of the information that I had gathered from one of my forms, and I just wanted to see what they were able to do. And this is some of the reporting that was automated. I did this in about 5 minutes, so it was pretty impressive that I was able to create these reports. And I did that actually. I had copied the JSON feed, which is in the data. I had just gone through. Let's just choose that form. I had gone through there, and I had selected all this information and just copied it and pasted it within Zoho Reports. The next piece we have, Ryan's going to talk about, and then I'm going to walk you through really how this process works. It's really exciting, and it's incredible what we can build out. So Ryan, if you want to just briefly talk about the beginning stages.
Yeah, absolutely. So we actually have a pretty unique relationship with Esri, and for those of you who are not Esri customers on the call, Esri is a geospatial mapping platform and company, very large in large enterprises, city, state, local, federal governments. And one of the interesting things that we found is that we had a lot of customers that were collecting data using iFormBuilder, really relying on the advanced form building features, skip logic, and different types of subforms. And so when they were doing a lot of post-processing, and what we're in the process right now is creating a connector. And that connector is going to allow you to publish either forms from iFormBuilder directly as featured services inside of your Esri ArcGIS Online, or to take an existing featured service inside of Esri ArcGIS Online and create a form that can then be sent out to the field for either offline data collection, or you can add different types of skip logic directly to it. So we're in the process right now, and Esri just recently named us the 2014 Best New Partner. Really some exciting stuff happening on that front. And for the larger enterprises that may be on the call right now, if you do have a server edition or other types of Esri use cases, again, use my email address at the bottom. We'd love to hear how or how you're currently using Esri platform, but also how we might be able to augment that in the future. So you can continue there, Barrett.
Sure. Thank you, Ryan.
Thanks.
So like Ryan mentioned, this is the beta version of the Esri ArcGIS connector. To do this, I have this Esri account already, and I'm going to walk you through that. I've linked those two accounts, and I'm going to show you how this connector works currently. Like Ryan said, it is still in that newer stage, so we're still figuring it all out, but I am able to show you some of how that process looks. All right, so now I've gone to, this is of course a hidden feature right now, and this is us testing it out. But here I have linked up that Esri account, and I have that username. If that were to change, then I can unlink it and add a new user or a different username. Underneath that, I have all the forms that are in this account. Just to show you. So I have all the connected accounts, and I just go back. For some reason, that just decided to hide the specific one that I did. Hold on one moment. All right, so hopefully earlier you saw that I had connected a specific form, and I'll go ahead and connect it right now just in case, or connect another one just to show you how that works. So here I'll choose the Emory training feedback, and I'll select publish with existing data. All right, so don't worry about that. So then moving forward, I've connected, let's say I've connected that specific form, and I had the Android end user training assessment. That was the form that I connected previously. And here it is in Esri ArcGIS under My Content. My Content, it is that Android end user training assessment. From there, I've selected that specific form in My Contact, and I can add to a map, I can add to a new map, or add to a new map with full editing control. Here I'm just going to add it to a map. And here we have the map that shows the records. Now, as you can see right now, I only have that one little small dot, but if I go and zoom a little bit closer, you'll start to see that those dots become more and more. And now that I'm zoomed in, I can select each one of those dots and receive some of the information from that specific record. So the answers that were taken, or the answers that were completed for each of those records in those locations. With this, you can also, I'm sure those of you who are familiar with Esri ArcGIS, you can change the base map as well as do some amazing functionality within your map and bring in other layers to see. I mean, most likely your data is more important and interesting than what I had here, but I'm sure you could see the population of, if it's in a city, how many people are there, or even if it's not, and if it's a small country, how the population is affecting what maybe your data collection. So you can bring in a lot of other pieces of knowledge in here and have those as different maps. And it's amazing how those can come together to paint a clearer picture. All right, so then, I mean, that's the basics of how you can use that Esri connector. It is relatively simple, but it's still figuring out some of those kinks, like we just ran into one today, but it's very easy to use when those kinks don't occur. So here, if you have any questions about either WebMerge, Clipfolio, Zoho reporting, or the Esri ArcGIS connector, I'd be happy to answer them, and I'm sure Tony and Ryan, Ryan, I know you're going through and fielding all of these, so whatever we can do to answer, that would be great. And then the next section is on the building custom web services with Tony.
Perfect. And Barrett, we've been fielding quite a few of the questions. A lot of them are great in terms of what is possible, what is capable, how to access certain types of login information, and what's needed. So with that, I think it would be best to turn this over to Tony and have him talk about custom web service development and what's happening and how customers are really leveraging that.
Thanks, Ryan and Barrett. So we'll wrap this up with what's next, right? So what Barrett just walked through is fantastic, and it serves many purposes. Some tasks out there are very simple, and truly using something like Zapier or these other plug-and-play web services makes a lot of sense. In other cases, the solution just isn't robust enough, or there's some additional business requirements that call for a custom solution to be built. And these are things that are typically being handled either in-house by a development team, or they're being outsourced to our team to put together. A lot of times we're seeing folks come to us primarily because we built the platform, and our knowledge is really helpful in building these things out faster and actually cheaper than doing them in-house. So these custom web services are typically some code written by a developer. This is beyond the drag and drop functionality that Barrett would have shown in Zapier. I can give you a few examples. In one scenario, we completed a project for a customer, and the idea is that they send a block of data through to us, and so this is coming from a data system outside of iFormBuilder, and this information that they send is actually consumed by some code that we wrote. It's responsible for building 2 option lists and then actually creating a brand new lookup table and filling that table with however many rows were sent across by this customer. And so after all those things happen and we do some verification that the data is clean and everything is set up the way it should, we actually update forms with those new assets. So the idea here is that this is like an audit per se. So you start out with some intake information, and then you use that information later down the line. And so effectively we were doing this by hand just to get an idea of what it would take to get up and running, and it was taking me around 4 hours to process the information that was being sent over by hand, doing the validation, picking through it, making sure everything was ready to go before applying the changes to the live forms. So when we finally stepped in and said, let's automate this, let's put something in place that doesn't require someone sitting down for a few hours and doing this, and naturally there were a few mistakes made when we were doing it by hand as well. Today, that whole process, which was taking around 3 or 4 hours, is wrapped up in about 70 seconds, and the whole verification process is really priceless. Because the code is taking care of making sure that the data is clean, rather than relying on somebody to really give it a good review, and then only to find out that the folks in the field can't use the form because the data is no good. So that's just one example of what a custom web service can do. It's doing many different things. So again, building 2 option lists, building a lookup table, populating the lookup table, assigning those 2 option lists to the the form that's being updated. And really the possibilities are endless. We see a lot of folks actually writing scheduling applications. So they have let's say work orders to fulfill, and that information is being captured somewhere, but ultimately the field work is done within iFormBuilder. So to streamline the process, the scheduling system is effectively talking to iFormBuilder as it's receiving new appointments. It's passing that information into iFormBuilder, and then those records are assigned to users in the field. You can even put some more intelligence behind it by implementing like a tracking solution, so you know where your folks in the field are, and then do a intelligent dispatch based on location. So it is really interesting to see what folks come up with based on their needs. And even though you may work in a similar industry, needs are usually fairly unique in some cases. You do it slightly different than the other guys do, and it ends up being a competitive advantage in the long run. Because you are saving time, money, and reducing the the chance for error. Ryan, did you have something you wanted to?
Well, no, Tony, I was actually going to just interrupt and see if we can interject here. The other concept of actually bypassing the form builder itself via the API. Some of the questions are coming up. I guess it's come up on a few of our calls and interactions with customers. Can you talk through, I guess, how that works, or what actually is happening and what's available within the API?
Great. Yeah, absolutely. So I know only because I've worked closely with them that there are a few groups out there that are building forms strictly through code, and so they're not logging into the form builder per se. They're actually designing these forms outside of iFormBuilder and then just sending all the proper commands in, if you will, to first build the form and then add all the elements to the form with the proper attributes. And so I think where they started were building these things by hand, understanding the structure that they wanted to use, and then effectively they used the APIs to understand what that form structure looks like in a developer world. Once they understand what it looks like in the developer world, they were able to manipulate that structure and send it back to us.
Awesome.
Now, one thing that we're working on from a platform standpoint is a built-in method for extracting form definition, if you will, being able to create a package which is redeployable. Form library is probably the most common term that we use when speaking about this. So it's a really interesting concept. The forms that you build are really, intellectual property, and you may want to be able to pull that down, make copies of it. We've seen it before where a form gets accidentally deleted by a colleague, and a lot of hard work went into developing that. So there's many different use cases for it. In particular, we're seeing folks building forms through the API because a lot of what they're doing is very much the same, but there are minor changes maybe week to week, depending on the locations that they're visiting or the type of studies that they're performing, and it really takes a lot of human element out of the whole equation.
And Tony, I got a couple questions, and it might be taking a step backwards, but can you reference, just some of the platforms that customers are creating these custom web services to go in and out of? The SAPs, the Oracle backends. Can you just go through a litany of what you're familiar with?
To be honest, Ryan, I don't honestly know. For the most part, setting folks on the right path to performing an integration is a matter of helping them understand just how to communicate with the iFormBuilder application at a development level. Usually, once we're over that hurdle, it's off to the races. I can tell you that in addition to all the web platforms that you see on Zapier's list, the big name database servers out there, folks are piping data into on a daily basis. So your Microsoft environments, your Oracle environments, all those are truly being used in some capacity.
Awesome. No, thank you so much for going through that. And Baird, I want to turn that back over. Are there any other questions, comments, or concerns about, I guess, API? I know this is a very broad stroke overview. This is the first of a few. Sessions and trainings and webinars on this redefinition, this highest level in terms of how you're able to interact with your data and really make it dance. So please keep those questions coming, and I expect quite a few emails here to the rcoleman@iformbuilder.com. Be more than happy to address any of your questions or concerns through this process. And I too will be dropping these links into the chat feature, and we'll go from there.
So the next thing I just wanted to mention is we Like Ryan said, we will have more sessions about the integration and redefining that workflow. But we also have a course or training class from 10 to 4 here in Herndon. Because you guys decided to join this session, we will, if you want to use that promo code and go to that website, you will get 50% off that training session. So I just want to make sure that we share that with you. There's also our next webinar. Every webinar, training webinar, is the last Wednesday of every month. So the next one will be on June 25th, and it'll be on the perks of having a dedicated database. And then Ryan, if you want to speak about those iFormBuilder integration services that individuals have available to them now.
Yeah, absolutely. So when we work with customers, it's we really I guess strive to establish the relationship as a partner, not necessarily as a vendor. And part of that is, I mean, a lot of the people that are on the call right now have lots of interaction, know us personally, and are also in I guess, have really taken the iFormBuilder to the next level. And when we work with customers, we have a wide variety of different types of integration services. And we've actually been on a hiring spree to build out, a professional services team specifically for these types of, business altering, business enhancing operations. So we do have our implementation support, which can help with the form building or connecting the dots between, other third-party systems. However, we also have, a day in the life program where we actually come in and are able to spec out, exactly see what your workflow currently is, how you're currently doing business, and then we have the full development and integration services team for project-based integration work. So if any questions like that come up, we'd be more than happy to take the phone call, understand what you're trying to do, and it's also a stretch goal as you start with simply trying to substitute your paper forms. There's a lot more that's possible, and truly exponentially. Or it's truly exponential what you can actually get out of, a deep integration with the platform. So we do have the professional services. We also have premium support packages in terms of how we're able to support you in different types of access. So this webinar is actually this training is being recorded. And within the next 24 hours, all of you will be receiving an email with a link to, one, the recording, but then also a few other resources embedded in the page. So it will be a good resource and tool for you to get started, as well as some future trainings that we have coming up in terms of how to dive into specific use cases within the integration services. Perfect.
Well, and I just want to close with, thanking you all for coming and attending this webinar on your Wednesday afternoon, or this training this Wednesday afternoon. If you have questions, here are our emails, but I also would suggest going through the Customer Success Center. It's amazing. We have thousands and thousands of articles there that are there to help you and to help with this integration process, as well as the API. And through the iForm, or the iFormBuilder Customer Success Center, we also have the chat feature where we have agents there who are ready to help you and answer any questions, as well as the ticketing system. So that's all for me. And again, I want to thank you. I know we threw a lot at you, and I'm glad that you were able to stick it through, and really, hopefully you were able to get a lot out of this training.
Great, and I've been fielding tons of questions through the chat feature here. So again, our emails are on the screen. If we can help in any way, shape, or form, please let us know. And with that, again, thank you so much. I'm going to end the webinar.